something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Check it! It's the InsideOutrz podcast with me, Danny Lloyd, the man who put the I in addict and the Y in you.
And it's the Lockdog, former rock bottom resident. Got it right for once.
Yeah, boy.
AKA Jordan Lockerbie.
And we are here for another edition of the InsideOutrz podcast where we hope to inspire you to believe in you. We are always trying to open space to be vulnerable for others by us being vulnerable for you. And we are very passionate about this podcast being a safe space for you to retreat to when the rigors of life have you overwhelmed.
Yep, and I'm going to kick this off with one of my favorite quotes from the man Viktor Frankl. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Ooh. That rings true for a lot of the people we work with.
It does, 100%. Yeah. Well, I've been sitting there in the last week, Lockdog, and musing about life, and obviously on a day-to-day basis with our businesses and the coaching and the programs around helping people out of addiction and recovering, and family programs and men's programs, all these things. We pretty much live our lives like we're in a social science degree and constantly come across people from all walks of life. And that's not even touching on the fact that through the Diary of an Addict social media stuff that we do, we have people reach out to us from there, from all over the world, and we actually just hold space for them and talk to them. We don't charge them. We just talk to tens and tens of people over the last few months. In fact, at this point, probably hundreds, because everyone's suffering. So if it's okay with you, Lockdog, I wrote a poem that kind of was channeled through me by the universe to talk to everybody that is suffering with a disconnection to self or others. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to use this platform to share it.
I say, go ahead, share it. Let us hear what you've written.
All right. So it goes a little something like this. You ever sit and stare, wondering if you have what's needed to become the gift you bear? Watching on as others seem to have it all done and dusted and are living in situ there. While your dreams gather dust, like you somehow forgot to drift inside the shit you dare. Breathe and lean in with me into the shadows and know what you feel, you see. If you believe in what you think is there, then that's what you'll become and be. It's okay if you're not where others are. They have a different story, and your timeline has a different glory decreed. Sometimes the late bloomers often show the most glorious seed, but don't give up or give in. Get up and stand tall when it's tough and you sin. I see you and your wonderful beauty serene. To finish, you have to begin. To be seen, you first have to disappear within. I'm here, tiny dancer. Not for money or acclaim, but because you're suffering, I turn into beauty from pain. I've dedicated my life to making sure the ones who have read this far have the tools to become what their hearts have been broken to be one. So when you wake up today, tell yourself how proud you are of how far that you've come, and let's keep journeying together into your dreams until they become reality and can be seen by all to be done. Stay patient and smile with me, because you are all special to me, as we all grow together and show the world what we have all wondered once to be. Now, it's our time to be seen.
Absolutely magnificent.
Boom, fire in the booth. If Charlie Sloth was involved, I'd be giving it them ones.
Incredible words. How long did that take you to put down?
About 10 minutes.
That's incredible.
It's what my mind. It's weird, bruv. Like my mind. Like I can be driving along from an appointment or whatever, And someone that I've been supporting and helping through whatever they're struggling with has made my brain think about something like that. And then I'll be driving along or whatever I'm doing. I have to literally stop whatever I'm doing and sit there and just write in my notes on my phone. And it's just this one hit. It's just like, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, okay, cool. I can get turn the keys back on and carry on driving. I end up late to my appointment sometimes because something just comes through me, bruh.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. Must have been all that hip hop stuff I used to do.
I think it's just your love for people.
Yeah, I mean, as was said in previous episode, I am addicted to people. Like I'm addicted to people and what they go through, and I want to help them grow through what they go through.
Speaking about what people go through and grow through, there's been a little bit of controversy. Well, I've picked up on it. Might not even be controversy. It might just be in my own head. Who knows? But I've heard little debates in the realm of trauma.
Yep.
Or trauma work. Adults that are doing a lot of work on themselves.
Yep.
And things are related back to early childhood trauma, and a lot of the time parents seem to get a little bit of a bad rap, and they go, because of the way your parents raised you or the circumstances you went through because of your parents, or if your parents had have done better things, then that trauma could have been preventable. And I've heard it whispered in quiet rooms where there's been trauma discussions, and there is a bit of an emphasis on early childhood development, trauma versus parents and parenting. And
Yep.
It's definitely something that people look into as professionals and working with a client and go, tell us a bit about your upbringing. What was mum and dad like? How were you raised? So forth and whatnot. Now, you tend to, in your own way, challenge that, because I've heard you say quite a lot that the reason you had your addiction with meth and used a lot of other substances was not because of the way your parents raised you or your parent raised you.
Yep.
But the reason you actually got out of the addiction or got onto the path of healing is because of the way you were raised.
That's 100%
and
correct.
Your family home was, in your perspective, probably the greatest thing ever.
It's my family home was like my power generator, that at times when I've gone offline and the blackness has descended into my existence, that power generator from growing up kicks in, and I somehow always navigate myself back out of what I have got myself into. And when I say that, I'm not saying it was by choice I got into it. I'm just saying that my mother and my grandmother and my grandfather and my stepfather, all in their own ways, gave me their own tools to put into my toolkit, so that when things came to pass, because nothing comes to stay, I had a way of finding the right maintenance tools to fix the problem at hand. And as such, I find it frustrating and sometimes to the point of deplorable that parents are always the first point of call when somebody has gone through addiction, criminal problems, arrests, imprisonment, and all of the above. And I must have been the parents. I mean, okay, there can be times that unfortunately parents have contributed to the problems that somebody has got into. Fair enough. Did the parents mean to do that? I don't think so. Like, most parents they're just working with what they've got where they're at the time as who they are. I don't think anyone's trying to mess their children up. But in interviews that I've had with certain news stations and broadcast networks, the journalist always tries to angle straight away at my upbringing.
Yeah.
And I'm always very venomous in response, because that's the paradigm. right? It's straight to the parents' fault. And it's like, no. I got out of addiction because of the way I was raised. I got into it because of other external factors. And as I said in a previous episode, my mother raised me and prepared me for the path. She did not prepare the path for the child, nor did my grandmother.
Oh, I love that.
Like she knew that when I left the family home and I flew the nest per se, that it's, as it says in the start of our introduction, it's a mean and nasty world, and I don't care how tough you think you are, shit's going to get you on the blind side. You're going to get caught on the blind side. You know, you're either in a problem, you're just leaving one, or one's about to show up. And the minute people start getting that into their head, that it's just a collection of cleverly disguised opportunities that are disguised as problems.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just, I shout out and I support any parent that is trying to navigate this holy shit show of a world right now with their young or teenage or late teened children, because it must be frightening with all of the things. I mean, what was I listening to the other day? Oh, so do you remember how it's come up in multiple discussions lately with me and you in the Adelaide area about this bullying at Golden Grove High School?
Yes,
I've
heard it a few times, from different
Christ, it
people.
sounds absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
And there's I just think to myself, like, how would you even deal with that as a parent? Like, I'm a very fiercely defensive person when it comes to people I love. I don't have children, all right? I chose not to have children, yeah? Like, people think I'm strange for it. Someone asked me once, a mentor said, why don't you have children? I said, I do. He said, you said you didn't? I said, I do. I got children. I got 7.6 billion children. And every single one of them needs my help. And that is my parenting to the world.
That's profound, man. I love that.
So anyway, my point being is I just take my hat off to parents raising children in this new age world we're in, because it's a fucking shit show. Sorry for the F-bomb, but it's a shit show. We're navigating it, all of us, and that's great. But it is
especially like, you know, when you have those single parents, like your mother was for a bit before your stepfather come into the picture.
First decade, she was on her own.
Yeah, but you know, like going through just how difficult that can be as a single parent, and especially with someone like yourself who has ADHD and just, you know, you can be chaos on the best of days.
Oh, madness, bro.
But you know, her working multiple jobs, trying to look after you and provide for you in the best way, you know, emotionally and physically and all things. And then, you know, for you to end up falling into addiction, and most parents in those moments go, what have I done wrong? Or the community around them points the finger and kind of goes, what did you do wrong? And for a parent to get that, and that's kind of where I'm bring it back around to the trauma versus parents.
So
like topic at the moment is if a kid's traumatized, it's a childhood upbringing, and the parents are to blame. And that's the way parents feel as soon as a kid's been, you know.
That's why the stigma is getting bigger around addictions.
Yeah, and there's a lot
it's like, what does it say about me? This says nothing about you. What does it say about your child? Ask your child what he's feeling, she's feeling. That's probably why. And that's something that happened. I'll tell you a story. At this point, my poor mum, at this point, between Diary of an Addict, Lives for Fives, all of the talks I've given over my life in different areas and arenas and things, and now bloody a podcast and God knows what else in the future with my public speaking and that, I think she's just got to a point now where she's like, oh, look, there's nothing else left to bear, so you might as well just talk what you want. So let me give an example of 101 parenting that I will tell you now is about preparing your child for the path and not the path of the child. So when I was 17, I got arrested on a drug charge. There's a whole backstory to that, but I'm not going to go into that because that will take all day. But it's kind of a funny story, even though it's very serious. Anyway, I got arrested on a drug charge at a very inopportune time as well, because a friend of mine had been in prison, and we had decided to I had decided to ask my mum if we could look after him when he came out, because he had nowhere to go.
As you do.
So as always, mum knows I bring all the waifs and strays home. So she said, all right.
Does that, by the way?
Yeah, I still do that now. So she basically agreed that he could be released from prison to our care, and so he was getting out the next day. And the night before, I got arrested for cannabis possession, which wasn't great. Anyway, I thought my mum would be all right, and I was like more full sketched out and scared as hell about my dad, or stepdad, but for purposes so everyone understands in the future, like my dad, like my stepfather is my dad. So I thought he was going to absolutely annihilate me. My mum had just launched a brand new company at the time, a very well-known investment banking company, and the branch in Guernsey. So I got arrested for the cannabis and got put in the prison, in the cells. But then after that, they had to come and raid the house. But the two policemen were very kind to tiptoe through the house in the middle of the night and just search my room, because I was paying rent. So they can't actually search by law, they can't search the house. They can only search my room.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next morning I got up and I hadn't told my mum or anything. So I told my stepdad late in the day. I told Pete, and he just didn't seem fazed. And I was like, he's dead against drugs. He used to have best rates in the customs and everything. He's like, oh yeah, no worries. Good luck telling your mother. I was thinking, I don't get it. Like, what do you mean good luck telling my mother? I thought you were going to go off. So anyway, long story short, I went and told my mum, and she was actually livid. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. She was very angry. And I'd always thought mum, not a pushover, but I just didn't think that would happen. Anyway, afterwards, she basically said to me, you know why I'm angry? She said, because you didn't tell me you were using cannabis. And I was like, why? Why would I tell you that? And she's like, Daniel, I'm your mother, right? Mm. Like, whether you kill someone, you're dealing drugs, you've crashed your car, you've robbed a bank. If you don't tell me, how can I ever help you?
Yeah.
She said, from now on, you never, ever, ever lie to me again, or keep the truth from me, or not inform me of things you're doing, even if it's a shit show, because then I can't help you. And ever since then, we've had this very open relationship where when I'm struggling, and I talk to her about everything, including sometimes the things I've struggled with as a boy and a man in my sex life. I know that sounds weird, but I didn't have a fucking dad, all right, until my dad come along.
Yeah.
I didn't have a father. So my mum's had to do everything, all right? She's my best mate. So anyway, my point being is, she opened up a dialogue of trust.
Yeah.
Some would call it, what do you call it? Safe stranger.
Yes, I have a program all about communication and family structure. Yes,
so the safe stranger. So she basically took her mum hat off and basically said, if you're going to be involved in things or you're struggling, you need to tell me. And so as such, ever since, I've had this amazing relationship where I can talk to my mum about everything. And that's why I think I got out of the meth addictions and all the other things I've been into, because I always knew my mum had my back.
Yeah, incredible. So, but because your upbringing was so good, and I am talking about trauma versus parenting, what do you think was your precursor for your addiction?
Which addiction? There's a few.
I'll probably go with the one that robbed you of many years.
So the meth?
Yeah.
Okay. The precursor. Okay, so the precursor to my meth addiction, as most addictions can be defined, was a disconnection. So I had always dreamed about moving to Australia, and I moved over here with my partner at the time, and I kind of got gifted by her these group of people that became my friends. They're all good people. And then, of course, I also kind of got gifted this kind of job because I, didn't do the plumbing. We've talked about that, I think, before, where, I moved here and they wanted me to retrain in plumbing when I'd done it for X amount of years and whatever. I was just like, nah, it's not happening. You're not getting more money out of me. You've already got 30 grand out of me. You want another 9 to tell me how to suck eggs? It's not happening. So I got given this asbestos removal job for this big blue chip company. And so while I was in that, I was surrounded by a lot of male figures in personal and professional life to try and fit into Australia that really only ever talked about 3 things. The 3 F's, I call it. Fighting, something, and football. You can fill the middle one in. You know what it is. It's a swear word, and I'm not going to say it because I know I've already dropped the F-bomb like 2 times, and I'm trying to be aware of it because I don't want to offend people with all the swearing.
If it's our text message appropriate, it's EFFING.
EFFING. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that one, yeah. But yeah, so as a very emotionally intelligent man who'd had grown up with very emotionally intelligent men as friends, I struggled to talk about how I felt and connect on the levels that I needed to connect on. It doesn't mean any of these people, personally or professionally, that I was either working or hanging out with the bad people, all right? So if any of them are listening, get back in your box. Like, you're all good people. You just weren't my people. Like, you weren't my men. The kind of men I needed to connect with and to feel like I could emote how I was feeling while I was trying to fit into a country that had already culture shocked the hell out of me. Like, I was absolutely overwhelmed when I first come here by so many different things going on. And I was away from my family, which isn't like a big, it's not like a big thing because we've been away from each other because we've lived in different countries for quite some time.
Yeah, but you couldn't find your tribe.
No, I couldn't find my tribe at all. And then to try and fit in with said tribes, I did what my old behaviours had always defined in me, which was I just went with the crowd, and the crowd were using meth, so I used meth.
Yeah.
And I used it, and I was really good at it. When I say that, I mean, like, I could use it, unlike a lot of people, and I could easily go to work the next day or the next 3 days of not sleeping, and it was chaos. It was chaos. But I was, and I didn't know, of course, at the time that I had some form of ADHD, which technically, if you take meth, just makes you calm.
Yeah, this story actually so far is very similar to quite a few people we've worked with, and we won't name names, you know who they are, that also have ADHD and actually are probably some of the world's greatest parents in terms of bearing love and all the things, and incredible upbringings. Come from financially stable family structures, and very much in their own way, they're like what you describe. And we had broken it down in conversations, not in front of a microphone, about, it wasn't trauma in our upbringing from the family, but living with ADHD.
That was the trauma.
The trauma that comes with it, of not knowing where you belong, feeling like no one accepts you. You enter every social situation, environment with heightened anxiety. Because
and I used to drink so much just to be able, before I'd even go anywhere, like I would just drill so many drinks down to try and be ready to walk into a room. And that's weird, right, for me to say, because a lot of people that know me know I'm a very confident person, so they think. But I'm very introverted. Like, I actually am very introverted. Like, I actually enjoy my own company a lot. It's actually a gift in a way, because I've met a lot of people lately that don't know how to be alone.
Yeah.
Although I say that, I never really knew how to be alone in one sense, because I just jumped from relationship to relationship, never really looking for the red flags,
Yeah.
And yet again, all of the relationships I've had have had their merits, and we've all contributed to each other in them. I'm just saying that they didn't work because I was constantly just trying to seek any kind of connection, and I wasn't still with myself and asked myself really, well, do you love yourself, Danny?
Yeah.
Like, do you actually love yourself? Because if you don't love yourself, whoever you're attracting isn't really going to love you in the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've found in common with anyone I've worked with that has a great upbringing, ADHD, falls into the addiction of meth. They go through life not able to be their authentic self.
No.
They're always standing out, trying to fit in.
Yep.
They feel prejudged. They feel like they're not good enough for peers or certain industries of work and whatever it is. So do you think that not being able to be authentic, that in itself would be traumatic?
Oh, 100%. Like, to actually walk around every day living a lie, like living an actual lie. Like, do you know how many people I walk past on a daily basis? Like, I love people watching and people listening. And the amount of people on a day-to-day basis that are literally pretending to be someone else. So that's actually, right, okay. So that's actually what they call cognitive dissonance. It's literally thinking about doing or being something else and not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what cognitive dissonance is in psychology terms. Like, and that's a disconnection from me being that when I'm trying to be this. And then your brain going, what? Oh, that doesn't make sense. 2 + 2 isn't 68, bruv.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But then it's, if you are your authentic self, or back in those years were your authentic self, you probably would have had no friends.
Would you know
you would have felt even worse about yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
And you would have over-questioned and analysed every fibre of your fabric.
Yep.
And left yourself in a worse state.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's probably why I was so angry and so volatile during my 20s, and probably even, to be honest, in my late teens as well, because in the different places I was in, like, I think about it, I wasn't actually that volatile when I lived in Edinburgh, and that's because it didn't feel a caged-in environment. I didn't know anybody, so I could just be myself. But in Guernsey, I felt like a bird. I felt like a whale in a cage, like that's the extremity of metaphorically how I could explain how I felt. I felt like a whale that had been put in a birdcage.
Yeah.
Like, I just couldn't move or breathe without anyone having an opinion of me or something, or do this or say that or whatever. Yeah. And half of it was probably being made up in my own head too.
It's one thing I get a lot, and I now am very aware and see a lot of, is a lot of people living with ADHD don't feel understood and they don't feel heard.
No, they don't.
And that sucks.
It does
we
suck.
all want to feel heard and we all want to feel understood. And when those things aren't met, we look for validation in unhealthy ways.
No.
Or we end up in negative mental states.
Yep. We end up in all sorts of paradigms that are not. You look at
some of the drug using communities. Do they accept certain people, or do they accept everyone?
No, they pretty much. The drug using communities, actually, they kind of accept anyone as long as you've got money.
Yeah. As long as you partake in the behaviour.
Yeah, because that's all.
You've got the money to partake in the behaviour.
And that's all it is.
You can all do it together, because then it becomes acceptable socially.
Yeah. But that's all it is, right? Like, when you're partaking in said drugs, alcohol, or behaviours of addiction, the people you're frequenting with, they're not your friends. No. They're people you have something in common with. Think about addiction. It's a hobby. That's what it is. It's a hobby. It's a hobby that you decide to... Like, when people play Warhammer or sail boats or jog, right? That's a hobby. And then the people that you go and jog with or play Warhammer with or sail boats with, right? I guarantee most of them you don't actually end up hanging out with outside of your hobby. They're just you've got a common interest, right? That's exactly what addiction is. It's a common interest.
It allows you all to connect.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean, so when you get out of addiction, that's why most people struggle and end up relapsing and failing at it and taking loads of attempts at it, is because I've got news for you. You want to get out of addiction? It's fucking lonely. It is lonely. I had to go through so much in the different times of my life of doing it that was very lonely. But you know what? There is absolute treasure in the tragedy.
That just made me think of Dr. Gabor's addiction begins with pain and ends with pain quote of, I'm sure for you, addiction stopped you from feeling lonely, but getting out of addiction had you feeling lonely.
It did.
Painful at the beginning.
It is.
Addiction stopped it.
Yeah.
You stop the addiction, you're lonely again. It's painful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, in life, like, if you do in life what is hard, your life will become infinitely easier. And if you do in life what is easier, your life will stay infinitely harder. And that's the exact paradigm for an addiction, right?
Yeah.
Doing what's easy, making your life hard, is staying in the addiction. Doing what's hard to make your life easy is getting out of it, sitting in the lonely place, not falling off, sticking to your guns, and then getting out of it. And I'll tell you this right now, some of the most successful people in this world are normally the ones that recover from addiction. Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
In the space of 10 years, he was in an orange jumpsuit in an LA court looking like, what a waste of talent. Now he's like one of the highest grossing actors in Hollywood. And he was addicted to all sorts. I can go through so many of them. I'm not gonna bother.
I can definitely understand it. Like with my time being homeless, using a lot of drugs, ending up with bad mental health, and just not meeting Maslow's basic needs.
Yep.
After sorting my stuff out, getting it all together, and going through conforming to what's normal in society, getting the job, paying the rent, all the bills, getting the car,
all the white picket fence stuff,
living out the Australian dream or whatever dream. It was actually, on reflection, I realised it was so much easier to do all the things that society deems normal.
Yep.
And just how difficult it was actually to be using drugs, living at the bottom of Maslow's and struggling to meet it.
Yep.
Versus just where I am now. Like, it's still harder down there. So I can understand people like Robert Downey Jr. that, if you can sustain your life there for a while and get through it, everything after that's easy. Like, you compare everything to that place, and nothing in life is hard again.
No.
Like, absolutely not. I compare everything to my worst times when I feel like these good times are actually bad times. And I go, hang on a minute, dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, you've gone through some shit.
Yep.
So, in comparison, the grass is pretty green.
It's child's play, bro. Absolute child's play. Thought we might take a little bit of a segue into our favourite little topic.
Yes, it's the news of the week.
Read all about it. Read all about it. It's the news. Oh. What happened there?
It's the news of something.
It's the news of something.
News of the week.
Yeah. So this week's news of the week is about, it's kind of cool in a way, but it's also a very metaphorical thing for life. So anybody that likes combat sports of any kind, although that's turning into quite the circus act lately with all of the crossovers, but if you know combat sports, you know Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt, the Super Samoan, who's been in the combat sports arena for 31 years. 31 years of getting your head punched in. I mean, it's just a lot to think about. Anyway, there has been a fight recently in a boxing ring between the Super Samoan Mark Hunt and SBW Sonny Bill Williams. And this was touted as the final step for Sonny Bill to finally get this fight with Paul Gallen going on so they could have this big rugby kind of crossover thing, even though I think Paul Gallen's so punch drunk at this point from taking too many hits to that big blockhead of his. And I'll take my hat off to him. I don't like the bloke whatsoever, but he is actually quite the boxer. Anyway, there was a absolute shock in this fight because Mr. Sonny Bill didn't do what a lot of us tend to do in life and didn't stick to the plan. The coach's corner could see it coming. When Sonny Bill Williams decided to stop dancing around the boxing ring, that opened the door for Mark Hunt to turn the tide in his last ever fight. The previously 9-0 Williams had controlled the first, second and third rounds of their heavyweight clash at Sydney's Aware Super Theatre. He'd moved freely and landed plenty of punches, many that looked like they might level the Super Samoan early on. In the third, Williams landed a series of punches to the head, but in the fourth, the floodgates opened for Hunt. Despite cries from his corner to move and dance, Williams stood still, and Hunt swung hard at his head and landed a right hand, because Mr. Sonny Bill let a little thing called ego creep in. With a little under 2 minutes to go, Hunt knocked Williams' mouthguard out and landed a sequence that dropped the two-time Rugby World Cup winner to the canvas. Then the knockout blows came, leaving Williams to stagger around the ring in a daze before falling to one knee. And game, set and match to the Super Samoan on his last ever fight in combat sports, beating a massively upset Sonny Bill Williams. I actually couldn't believe it, bruv. I love boxing. I was staggered to see. And anyway, I think it's quite the metaphor for life, because basically he didn't stick to the plan. The game plan was for him to keep moving, use his reach, keep him at distance, and fatigue Hunt. Right? He's a big boy, Sonny Bill.
Yeah.
And in the end, Williams admitted he got sucked in and ultimately allowed Hunt to do what he does best, which is punch on, as a Samoan does, with big hammer granite hands, and just absolutely, you should see it, bruv. Like, this punch comes in and it literally knocks Sonny Bill's mouthguard out. And then on top of that, while he's got no mouthguard in, Mark Hunt ends up 3, 4, 5, I reckon there was 6 massive punches to the jaw after he's lucky the teeth didn't get busted.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not surprised. Like, there's been fights I've watched Mark Hunt, conduct, and when he puts on a show, he really puts on a show, and you just think those fists, should be illegal.
100%.
Someone needs to cut them off and remove them. They are absolute sledgehammer ends.
Oh, he's absolute. He's a folklore legend in UFC, but he did switch over to boxing. I was very disappointed, actually, because he fought Paul Gallen a while back, and yet again, like I said, I don't like Paul Gallen as a human being whatsoever, but as a boxer, he's pretty impressive, actually, to say he's 40 plus years old and played rugby. But he lost, and he lost pretty abysmally, to be honest, to Gallen, and I was like, yeah, just leave it, bruv. Like, leave it alone now. But to see this happen in his last fight, it's kind of really cool, to be honest. But I think it's very cool when you think about the metaphor for life. If you don't stick to the plan, you're probably going to get knocked out.
Yeah, and there's also another one in there just about, he let his ego get in the way as well. And ego plays a big part in a lot of people not moving anywhere in life. I ultimately think, ego's there to protect us in many different ways. It can also have us conduct ourselves in a stupid manner because ego's not right for that moment. Ego holds us back. It's generally when you're very anxious and fearful. It's ego's telling you, no, we're not going to do that. Or if you're someone that has too big of an ego, it puts you in situations and you behave in a way that ultimately can end in defeat of a fight in a ring or
a fight in life.
Or a fight in life, whatever that fight may be. And you need to keep that ego in check.
You know what ego stands for, don't you?
Oh, I've heard this one before, but you're going to have to tell me. Edging
God out.
Yes, I love that.
Ego can be your best friend or your worst enemy. So, anyway, good on you, Mark Hunt. You are an absolute legend, and I'm so glad you got to bow out with a win. He hasn't had a win since 2017 in combat sports.
Oh, wow, it's been that long.
It's been that way. I mean, he's kind of mainly been out of it and just in and out with these kind of like fancy showcase things, but really happy for him as a boxing fan, and generally, just, shout out to also Dion Formatu We love our Samoan friends and our Samoan community, so we take our hats off to yous. And good on you, Super Samoan Mark Hunt.
Oh my God!
Pull your fucking head in, bruv. Well, but he certainly pulled Sonny Bill's head in. Anyway, that's that. So, what else you got for me, Lockdog?
What else have I got for you? You know what? I reckon we should probably look at wind it down a bit.
Okay.
Been on for a while, but again, like our last episodes, I would like to close this with some questions that benefit our listeners.
Okay.
What is a question I should have asked in this interview that I didn't ask that you wish I had of?
I think one thing that I'm extremely passionate about outside of the addiction per se and all the stuff about addiction and recovery and whatever is about men, just about men showing up for themselves more. So I think if there was one thing I wish you'd asked me about that you haven't asked me about in this interview, I guess it would have been what makes a man.
Well, that's profound. That's deep.
What makes a man? Because
Well, actually, that's going to lead into the next question.
yep.
What's made you this man?
My mother, mainly, and my grandmother have made me this man. And also, I've met some pretty amazing people in my life. I have a very small collection of stunning men in my life back home that I grew up with. You know, shout out to Flock, Youngo, Shawnee, Ed. You know, a few others. Growing up with emotionally intelligent men, or at the time we were boys, I guess, as friends, really definitely gave me a solid foundation. I think the other thing has been traveling the world. Like, my mother said to me when I was young, I don't care if you go and have kids or don't have kids and buy houses, don't have houses, get married, don't get... I actually don't care. I just want two things from you, son, for you, mum. I just need you to be happy and I need you to travel a lot. Because traveling will be your best education in life. And I think what's made me the man I am today is because I've dared to dream. And not only have I dared to dream, but I've turned many of them into reality by the sheer belief that I can do it. And traveling around the world and living in so many different countries and being around so many different cultures and always being inquisitive. Actually, you know what it is? That's what it is. What's made me the man I am today is being inquisitive.
Yes, it's funny. Curiosity is the key ingredient for growth in children, I believe.
100%.
And we tend to lose it going into adulthood. And we kind of just end up in idle stagnation.
And why do you think that is? I'll tell you why that is.
We're kind of conditioned to stop being curious.
That's correct. And you know why?
To only dream as far as we're allowed to dream.
There is one statement from generation to generation that I have heard that is the curiosity killer.
What's that?
Curiosity killed the cat. That's literally what I remember being told at school and in different arenas and places.
Yeah.
And I've heard so many people tell that. I don't hear it much now, which is good. But when you put a statement like that out there, your unconscious mind hears that and goes, oh, I should probably stop doing that then. And here we are.
Yeah.
Nobody anymore can be genuine because they stop being curious.
Yeah. But imagine you take curiosity, you blend it with imagination, the amount of things you can do.
Yeah, be curious is all I can say to anybody. My inquisitive nature has also got me in a lot of trouble. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've done some pretty silly things with it too. But then have I? Like, yes, they are silly and they did get me in a lot of trouble. But, you know, someone very close to me back in Guernsey, who I shared a fair few years of my life with in my 20s, she messaged me the other day and she'd listened to the podcast and she said to me, "When did you get so wise?" And I didn't even think about my response. And I said, by doing a lot of stupid things, that's how I got wise. I don't think it's when did I get wise. I just got wise because I've basically spent my whole life being unwise.
Yeah. It's experience.
Mm-hmm. And that's
good and bad.
Yeah. How the hell can you understand how to succeed at anything if you're not prepared to fail at nothing? Like, seriously. We are so worried about, I'll do it when I'm ready. You know, I'll just wait for the kids to leave home, or I'll just, you know, like, I just need to get these ducks in a row. Guess what? The ducks are never going to be in a row.
Yeah.
Just go out there and do it, and you'll learn along the way.
Yeah. I was saying to everyone that, you know, is afraid to take a step into the pond of uncomfortability and just fail. Like, it's like, I would rather try and fail.
Yep.
Than not try and regret. I can live with the failure because then I can go again.
Yep.
And I can go in again a bit more prepared with a bit more wisdom.
Yep.
But to not try at all,
no.
And to live with regret, no. Not a chance.
No. It's just, yeah. Anyway, my answer would be being inquisitive.
Yeah, I like that. It's you definitely need that curiosity or imagination.
Well, we wouldn't
to see beyond where you are and to strive for bigger and greater things.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't be where we are right now doing this podcast if I hadn't been inquisitive when someone said about this course.
Well, if no one was curious in the time of man, we wouldn't have a microphone to speak into.
No.
But someone through curiosity and imagination and then design and applying things, here we are in front of touchscreens and microphones and having a chat. And
what's the first four? What does the first four letters of curious say? Cure.
Oh.
Like, technically.
Yeah.
So the cure to people becoming genuinely them again is start being curious.
Yeah, well, you look at what fear stands for.
False evidence appearing real.
Boom, there it is.
False evidence appearing real. Fear doesn't even exist. You know that? Fear, the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. Like, where does fear happen?
In your mind.
Exactly. So what do you need to work on?
Your mind. The answers are right there.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. What's one interpersonal skill you believe is vital for success? And when I say success, I don't mean like riches and all the things, but just moving towards that ideal life that someone might have. Being coachable. Being coachable.
Yeah. Like listening and being coachable. And I don't mean it in all this coaching industry rubbish. And it's not rubbish. I'm just saying I don't mean it in all that. I mean it in life.
But just willing to take the advice of
be
someone.
Coachable. Like be coachable by any, like even when you're young and you play sports, football, whatever, soccer over here, whatever. In school, in education, in personal life, in your family life, in your friendships, in your part-time jobs before you become a full-time employee, in business like we are now, and we have mentors. Be coachable. Otherwise, why ask questions?
Yeah.
Like the only interpersonal skill you need to have is be coachable. Yeah. Like sometimes people come up and ask me, or they're struggling or whatever. I had a mate of mine the other night was struggling with stuff, and he comes over and tells me the things he's struggling with. So I try and give him some advice so he could be coachable maybe and listen. Just got defensive, and I'm like, so what are you asking me for then, bruv? You've come to me and you don't know what to do about something. I'm trying to give you some advice from whatever wisdom pool I have, and instead you just shut down and became defensive straight away. And it's like, so for me, I've worked very much on being very grounded and aware of my ego, and always remaining coachable.
Yeah, that's cool. And for anyone listening, I think just to clarify and knuckle down a bit more on coachable, you need to be willing to take on the advice of others or someone else, but then go away and apply it in your life. Because I have a lot of people that, seek out advice, they get the advice, they walk away saying, yep, now I know. But nothing changes because there's zero application.
No.
It's great that you get the answer, but you need to apply the answer for it to be effective in your life or whatever it is.
100%. 100%. Yeah, wow. That's
I'm going to end the questions there, but I do love these little quotes, and I want to read another one before we close it down and leave the listeners hopefully better than they found us, or we found them.
Listen, that's the whole point of this podcast, right? We this podcast is there for people so that they can leave us better than they found us, right? So, remember, before the Lockdog leads us out from another great episode, to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share, tell your friends, anybody that you know struggling with mental health, anybody you know that's in a position and not good, just tell them to watch the podcast. I'm telling you now, it'll help them. It'll help them smile because we can laugh at ourselves, and it'll help them understand that they're not alone with their struggles. It's very important.
If there's something you would like us to touch on, feel free to send it, whether it's through Facebook or leave comments on YouTube, or I'm not sure if you can on Spotify and Anchor, but if there's something you want us to talk about or touch on, just let us know.
Yeah,
and we'll
honestly,
try and fit it in.
It's the people's show. This is the people's show, ran by the people's champ.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Like if you want something addressed, you want a question answered, you've got a problem in your life and you need help with it, send us a message or put it in the YouTube comments, and we will start bringing them up in a new segment that's coming soon in the show called Coach's Corner.
Incredible. All right, I'm going to leave you with this. Growth is painful. Change is painful. But nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. Mandy Hale.
Wow, that is profound. That's profound. Well, that's a great way to lead out. And remember, there is somewhere that you all do belong, and that's here on the InsideOutrz podcast. We'll see you next time, legends.
You, me, nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how.
See you next time on the InsideOutrz podcast.
Game over.